So welcome everyone to another great edition of Max and TV. For those who are new listeners, Max and TV is all about business, but not as usual. I would like to add a lot of humor into things, but be very informative. This is going to be a very interesting talk. I'll be discussing, due to popular demand, of course, that my personal experience working for Amazon. A lot of people, especially lately, with everything that was going on with the Amazon workforce and people, making a lot of claims against Amazon about how they treat their workers, the union stuff, all of that. So I can't speak for everybody. I'll only be speaking for myself. However, the difference here is that when it's coming from me who actually work for Amazon, it's a lot different than coming from a source that never worked for Amazon. So I'm going to try to be as black and white as possible. No emotion, no emotional anything into this. I'll be stating what I saw with my own two eyes, and hopefully we'll give a nice picture to everyone as far as what it's like to really work for Amazon. So all right, let's get started. So I guess the first question of business is, how did you even start there? How does the hiring process work? Everything of that nature. So honestly, just like anything, I applied online. I got an email stating that, you've been accepted, blah, blah, blah. They put in like, you make $10.50 per hour in like the boldest, hugest font you can possibly imagine. Please report, here and here, so to this location, which happens to be in Doral, Florida, right by the Miami airport, which is right by, they had their Amazon Prime planes. And also just to, give a little bit of background as to, where I worked. I didn't necessarily just work in just a regular Amazon facility. I worked for Amazon Fresh, which, for those of you who don't know, that is Amazon's arm where they sell food items only. So they don't sell, when you're buying your microphone, let's say on Amazon, that's not where it's from. We were selling specifically Amazon Fresh, which is a part of Whole Foods. So when I walked in, I was like very naive to think like this was like an actual interview, or the fact that, there's some sort of vetting process. But that is not how it was at all. I showed up like an idiot in like dress pants to go work at a warehouse. Honestly, I was in grad school at the time also. So I show up, I walk into this room with like 20 other people, one HR person, and she goes like, okay, guys, ready. There's a drug test literally right in front of you. You stick like this thing in your mouth or whatever it is. And that was pretty much it. They literally just did a drug test. They didn't care. They might have asked a question or two about what days can you work, what days can you not work. Not a big deal, but everything is pretty much, can you pass a drug test or not? So it has nothing to do with if you are 50 years old with bad knees, no matter, it doesn't matter. They seem to have accepted practically everyone as long as you pass the drug test. So thank God I was able to pass the drug test with flying colors. And they sent me that email. I guess that's when they sent me that email where, congratulations, you've been accepted to work for Amazon. Please report here and here and at this and this time. And that's that. So I started working for Amazon. And right away, I mean, as far as like, there are a lot of stories about, the facility is decrepit, it's garbage. They don't have just, general sanitation or anything like that. If someone is saying that, like, I'm not going to discredit it, but as far as my own personal experience goes, the place was a state-of-the-art facility. It was a brand new building. The bathroom was so clean that you probably could lick the toilet. I don't recommend you do that. However, the place was spotless. The place was in fantastic condition. So honestly, no complaints there. And all over the place, you've got like the classic Amazon sayings where be frugal, be a leader, all that stuff. So the question is, how did everything work, right? So number one, to explain the difference between Amazon Fresh and Amazon, General Amazon, everything is one, just ambient state temperature. everything is the same temperature. You just have to just be boxing up a lot of stuff very quickly. It's very, very different in Amazon Fresh, as far as there are 3 different essentially rooms where they store stuff. So the first one is called the Ambient Room, which essentially you store all of your dry goods, such as cereal, dog food, stuff like that, soda. And then there's the refrigerated section where you're going to find your milk, your eggs, your bacon and stuff, all that kind of stuff. And then you have the freezer. And I say freezer not lightly. It was -10 degrees with the wind blowing right in your face. So it was so cold that you actually had to put on special equipment to go in there. I like to call it a spacesuit. And so there would be a designated area where you'd have to put this giant bodysuit on. Then you'd have to put on your gloves. You got like a mask or like this whole face covering thing. It was absolutely freezing in there, and it's very, very, and you have to be doing all this. You could be switching rooms rapidly, and I'll be getting more into what the actual job was as far as how difficult it was. So a major question that people have is, it was stated that, there are quotas. And so are there quotas? The answer is yes. There obviously are quotas. And where I worked, you have to pick a minimum of 120 products per hour. So 120 products per hour is to keep your job, essentially. So anything below that, you're fired. So the question is if someone didn't hit their quota, were they written up? And if they didn't improve, they would be fired. Is that true or false? I would have to say yes, actually. I don't know as far as, are you written up? They would essentially just call you over and tell you like, hey, by the way, you're really slacking here. You're only picking around 63 items per hour. You really need to do better. So they'd say something like that. And, if you don't like pick up, probably within a week or so, you're gone. One very interesting, thing that I like to say is, they used to, their hiring process, they literally would hire what it seemed to be anybody and everybody. I like to say that they kind of recycled people. It seemed to be that they, hire like in groups of 15 people at a time. So like a new group of 15 people came in, and like 2 days later, you'd never see them again. It's almost like, I can't state this as a fact, but it seemed to be that the turnover rate was like 99%. And that's honestly out of control. And the reason for that is, number one, the job is extreme. To work in a warehouse itself is hard. To work at an Amazon warehouse is much harder. To work at an Amazon Fresh facility is probably the hardest because of the weather changes, the amount of products you have to pick per hour. The fact that I didn't mention before was, before you even go, you have what we call carts, and then you have to put your brown bag on there. And depending on whether it's in a refrigerated section, you put a plastic in there. If it's in a frozen section, you'd have to put like this type of foil bag in there. And then you have to go over to the dry ice and literally have to pick up dry ice. Make sure you're obviously wearing gloves. Make sure you don't burn your hand off or whatever. There's a lot to the job, and it's extremely difficult to do. So a big question that was brought up is, does Amazon have any safety measures in place? They say that, they can carry, Amazon facilities, people get injured more than the league average, essentially. And so it seems to be that they don't have any safety precautions. As far as I know, from what I've seen, they take safety very seriously, like very seriously. They had a guy on staff at all times who that his whole job was safety. Not only that, give you a personal example where you have to move at there's a way, as they say at the facility, it's like there's a way to walk, and then there's a way to walk is a way that Amazon people walk. It's very different. So you're obviously rapidly going through aisles very quickly, and you're moving with this giant cart. And so, to pass the time, I actually had my earphones in. And so because I'm listening to music, I can't necessarily hear someone else if they are in the area. And so before you actually switch aisles, just like at a supermarket, you're supposed to yell the word corner. So you literally would yell corner, and someone would know that you're coming around the corner, literally, so you know not to get in their way. By the way, I actually, in my mind, every time I'm in a grocery store and I'm getting to the end of the aisle, in my mind, naturally is to come up and say corner because it's instilled in me from Amazon. But I guess I yelled corner, but I didn't hear somebody else respond. And it was actually the site leader who's like the highest level at the facility and almost ran my cart right into her. And from then on, they had a no earphone policy. I hate to say that if it was because of me, but it was probably leading up to that anyways. So I like to say that it wasn't because of me. So if you can't listen to earphones there, I'm sorry, my bad. But they take, as far as I know, they take safety very seriously. So another question, people can ask were, how are the managers? From my own personal experience, both my managers are actually very young. My direct manager, who I worked directly under, who gave me direction on a daily basis, was the same age as I was at the time. I was 25 years old. She was an engineer. I believe she was an engineering graduate from USC right out of college. And she was honestly fabulous to work with. We worked great together, honestly, and everything was fine. The manager on top, I also really liked. I thought he was a very cool guy, and I got along with him. So as far as like the people I was working with, honestly, was fantastic. I had no problems with them. Not only that, I genuinely enjoyed working with them. There was only one guy. There's always that one guy, but everyone knows that if you have a certain manager that can really make or break your day or how your work life is. So, subbing in, there was one guy that I did have, and I just couldn't really work with the guy because, number one, the guy had no sense of humor whatsoever. I came in like my hand was freezing to the point where it was kind of hurting, honestly. And so I came in and asked him for some hand warmers. And so he's like, yeah, is everything okay? I'm just like, I mean, I could use some hand warmers, but I'm not like dying or anything. And he's like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Like, he took it so seriously. So you might think like, oh, that's just a safety precaution. I mean, like, no, this is like over the top safety precaution. He's just being a prick and he just has no sense of humor. So as far as that goes, I didn't necessarily get along with him. And I actually mentioned him to, my direct manager, and she's like, yeah, I don't like that guy either. But overall, I mean, it was a pleasure to work with. The people I got to work with were great. So how did everything work essentially? So when you got into the facility, your job was to take this scanner. And number one, before you did anything, they typically ask you one random question, a question which would be something like, out of 1 to 10, how would you rate your manager's communication skills? So you put in your answer, supposedly it was anonymous, and that was that. And you went on with your day. So number one, you had like a team meeting really quick. You talk about, what's working, what's not working, ways to improve, blah, blah, blah. And then, in order to start, you'd have this scanner, and then you'd have to scan the bags into, everything was scanned. And so it would literally tell you exactly where the product was. So one thing Amazon is known for is speed, obviously, but efficiency is it's on another level. I've never seen anything like it. I was there, I think it was 6 months. They changed their process 7 times, meaning every single time they look for a way to save another quarter of a penny. How do we save another second on delivery? Things like that. And so in the way of picking product, everything was in order. And so everything was stored in cubbies. So a cubby could have like really random stuff. Like, it could have a toothbrush with, canned beans and a toy or something. So it could be very random. However, everything was strategically placed for a reason. And to avoid confusion, grabbing the wrong item, things like that, you'd have to actually scan the item to make sure that's the item that you're supposed to pick. So on and so forth. So you start in, let's say aisle 1. I don't remember what aisle it was. You start in aisle 1, blah, 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 and then you move on. So it's very efficient. So if you had, let's say you started in aisle A1. So you start there. Let's say you're looking for the crackers. You pick up the crackers. Then your next product is A25. So then you just simply go down the aisle it doesn't like tell you to pick up a list of stuff where you're supposed to pick up eggs, milk, juice, stuff like that, and you just have to figure out where it is. It doesn't work like that. It tells you exactly the place where it is. Everything is strategically ordered perfectly, and that's that. So they were extremely efficient. So a big question is, were the quotas unattainable? So a lot of the complaints that were happening against Amazon were that it was simply not possible to hit your quota. As far as from my own personal experience goes, I not only was able to hit the quota, I was their second best employee in the entire facility. I was picking around 173 products per hour. I didn't start out that way. I mean, is it hard work? Damn right it is. But I was always I always do this. I always go to like the top person and ask them, how were you able to do it? So I'd go up to my manager all the time and ask her any like different ways I can think of becoming more efficient or shedding some time here or there. And I did. And eventually I became like one of the best people to a point where actually I got an interview after like 2 months to be like an assistant manager there, where I wasn't honestly planning on doing it all. Honestly, I wasn't even there for the money. I was just in grad school and just wanted to work part-time. And so that's kind of what happened. So are they attainable? From my personal experience working for them, yes, it is attainable. From what I've seen, when someone complains about working for Amazon, one thing I would do if I were you would be to take notice of who is saying it. Is the person over the age of 50? Does the person have bad knees? Was the person in good shape beforehand? Were there things that you could have known before that this person would not succeed in a job like this? So, as I mentioned before, it seemed to be that they just, there was no like vetting process like at all. I've seen, out of shape 50-year-old people with really bad knees, and for them to just run around a warehouse like this to pick 120, you can forget about it. Also, there were some people that may have been not, that may have had a hard time reading stuff. Maybe English wasn't their first language, and so to know what product you're picking or that, it definitely could be difficult and make it very challenging for them. So as far as putting them in the position to not be successful, I don't want to give my opinion. If you would like to hear my opinions on working for Amazon, just please comment below. And if there's enough demand, I'm happy to make another video about it. But as far as what I've seen, that's kind of what I've seen. And you can also make the argument that, if you're in great shape, then you can do it fine. At the time, I was actually in my worst shape possible. I weighed 250 pounds. Just to give you a reference, today I weigh like 190, which we're talking 60 pounds less. 250 pounds was my absolute worst. Working there, I lost 25 pounds. And not only that, you get to work with a, very different dynamic type, very different group of people. One of the people actually, which was very surprising to me, was a professional athlete. He came in with like, North Carolina, like literally like, it almost seemed to be like thousands of dollars worth of like just clothing. It said like North Carolina, like really nice stuff. And I'm just like, what the hell is this? And he told me he was actually like a recruit and he wasn't able to play basketball for them for grades or something, but he played D1 college ball. And so, he did really well. And, in the meantime, he was looking to play overseas in Europe, and, his agent apparently was negotiating contracts for him to play. But in the meantime, he was working at Amazon Fresh. So even a guy like that, who he told me he would go to practice at 5 a.m. and work out, a guy who's in tip-top shape, way better than I was, had a hard time meeting the quotas. So based on that, it's hard to say that it's just about the it's just because if you are in very, very good shape and still was not able to do it, what is it? again, I'm not going to leave my opinion here. I'm just stating what I've seen, and what I've seen with my own two eyes, and I'm just giving you the way of the land that I saw it. So another popular question was, does Amazon track everything? So before I answer that, I used to make a joke that every time you went to the bathroom, there was a guy outside with his time, with his watch, counting how long it took you in the bathroom. So that is not to be taken literally. They didn't have a guy waiting out there counting how long you're in the bathroom for. But as far as, do they track your time? Heck yeah, they do. They track every freaking thing you can imagine. I mean, because they have to know how many products did you pick per hour, number one. So essentially, how many times you scanned in a product and how long did it, within the hour, obviously, so you can figure it out from there. So, a large, a big claim against Amazon was that people were literally peeing in pee bottles. They didn't have enough time to go to the bathroom, stuff like that. While again, I'm not going to discount anybody. However, as far as my experience goes, I went to the bathroom and I didn't have a problem with that. Yes, did it make me work a little harder so that I might have a couple extra, I might have an extra minute so I can walk to the bathroom and come back and as if nothing happened, it wasn't against my time slot? Yes. And at the end of the day, I still was able to pick exceedingly well and become one of the top performers. As far as my experience goes, I have not had that. That's not happened to me. So, yeah. So Amazon, back to Amazon tracking stuff. So they obviously track how many products you pick, but and again, like you get ranked. I don't have an absolute fact on this. However, for my understanding, from what people have been talking about at the facility, is that they track everything, even as far as when your bananas get delivered to the customer. And if the customer complain that, the bananas were in bad condition, that potentially might go back to you and give you a negative, almost like a negative rating towards you when they're evaluating their employees. So, when you're picking fruits and vegetables, you're supposed to, look at it with your own eyes to make sure that it's not crap, that it's not garbage. You can't just give them anything. If something went bad, you got to throw it out. So you have to give them like good stuff. You also have to you can't just like throw it in the bag. You should place it in like a nice orderly fashion. And supposedly that all went towards your, I guess, good feedback or bad feedback, whatever they call it, or however way they track people. But yes, they do track people as far as that goes. Another thing that they talk about with Amazon is they treat their workers like they're disposable. To answer that question, it's very difficult for me to not give my opinion. But honestly, just ask yourself a question such as, name me one other publicly traded company that genuinely cares about their employees. And when I say genuinely cares about their employees, they'd fire you in 2 seconds if they could. The only thing they really care about is how much money are they making. Again, that is one opinion. It's hard for me not to give my opinion, but at the end of the day, yes, of course you're disposable. And if you want to hear more about what my feelings are about that, again, please comment below and I'll be happy to make a video on that based on if there's demand for it. But as far as, are workers disposable? 100%. It's not even a question. Of course. Are you kidding? Of course. If you don't pick the right amounts or whatever, they get rid of you in 2 seconds. One very interesting fact about Amazon was, even though, yes, you technically did have shifts, you did have a shift or whatever. However, let's say there was nothing to pick at the time. And, a huge misnomer about working for Amazon Fresh, people, when they think about the facility, they think that there's like thousands of people working there. It's a gigantic warehouse. However, that is true with Amazon, maybe, but at the facility that I worked at, was it a big facility? Yes, generally. It was probably one of the smaller Amazon facilities, but honestly, it was like at the on a good day, there was a group of 5 of us pulling out these things, and we were literally delivering for the entire Whole Foods of South Florida. There was maybe 5 people. Sometimes it was me, the manager, and another assistant manager. Could you imagine? It's just us, and we're pulling these things out, no problem. So if you were to ask, what was it like to work in the freezer or things like that? If I had to say, I'll be like, unfreaking bearable. I mean, you have never, unless you lived in Antarctica, literally, you've never experienced cold like this in your life. It's not only negative 10 degrees, it is blowing in your face. Like literally, my beard would be white. There'd be like snow on my beard. It's unbelievable. So there again, back to what I was saying about safety. Do they take safety seriously? They take safety very seriously. You are not allowed to be in that place for more than 30. If you are there for more than 30 minutes, you could potentially you could probably get fired just by being an idiot. You cannot be in there for more than 30 minutes. The body cannot handle being in there for more than 30 minutes. So one thing that they are, and they're known for this, is that they're very frugal. And when I say that, do they give people the proper, the proper equipment, such as, putting on, that spacesuit, I like to say, to go into the freezer and things like that. So they obviously do. They do give you all that. So hypothetically, let's say you lost your gloves. Would they give you another one? Do you have to pay for them? No, you don't have to pay for them. There would be like a Granger vending machine there. And so you go up to the manager and the manager would get you another pair. But don't expect to lose 5 pairs the same week and think they're just going to give it to you like it's candy. They monitor this stuff very closely. And so if you absolutely need it, they will give it to you. But if you can make do without it, they don't. So they're very, very frugal as far as that goes. They don't wait. There's no waste at Amazon, like at all. As I said before, they changed their process 7 freaking times in 6 months. The way the bags they use, how they use the bags, how much material you put in there, blah blah blah, to save a quarter of a penny, maybe. There was somebody's sole job is to focus on how we can save even more money. So that's how it was there. Are there any breaks? So by law, they have to give you a break. How long the break is. So for me, I would work a 5-hour shift. I believe for every 5 hours, they require to give you 15-minute break. So I got a 15-minute break. So essentially, by the time I took my suit off, by the time I went to the bathroom for at least 30 seconds, I'm already like, I can only relax for like 10 more minutes, honestly. Was it like too much? No, it wasn't. It wasn't like I really valued that 15-minute time I had to myself. I ate lunch or just took a breather, just was able to get a drink or something like that. Was it like excessive? I wouldn't say so. I think it was, would I like to get more time? Of course. But as far as, this is a business, and do I think it's fair? Within reason, I think it's all right. I think it's fine. I was able to still do the job fine and did very well with it. So people that were there for like a 12-hour shift, they obviously got more. They obviously got more breaks. I believe they got 2 15-minute break with a 30-minute break with that. So based on what you want to do or when you want to take your break, that's up to you. But they do give you breaks for sure. One thing that I didn't mention yet was, just because you have, let's say you're supposed to work from, I don't know, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. I'm just saying random things. That doesn't necessarily mean you're actually going to work those hours. Hypothetically, let's say you walked in and there was just no business. There was just, which happened a lot, actually. They did not need the amount of labor on the floor to pick products because they were able to handle it themselves. They often say, you guys can go home. And there was a time where I even, I walked in and I didn't work for a second. The first thing they told me was like, you can go home. So essentially, I did not get paid for the day. I was very lucky that my life didn't depend on this paycheck, but some people did. And so they could just say, like, you can go home. We don't need you. So you do not get paid for the day. That's something that they did do when they needed to, or to eliminate costs, when they just simply did not have the orders to fulfill. So it's not just like if there's no orders, they're still paying you to sit there and do nothing. They are just not paying you, and they tell you to go home. Now, I'm sure there might be 1 or 2 things I probably left out. I mean, I'm trying to give the general overview of how things work. I probably can write an entire book on this, but if you guys liked it, appreciate it if you just gave me some feedback as to if you enjoyed it. Was there anything you disagreed with? Was there anything that you did like that I mentioned maybe you didn't know about? And if there's anything that you guys would want me to make a video about potentially, please also leave that in the comment section, because I would like to know what people would like to watch or anything that I can bring that you guys would be interested in. It'll be greatly appreciated, and hope you guys enjoyed. Well, until next time, we'll see you soon.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.